Hey Gloomers, welcome back to Nerdhaven. My name is Mike, and today I'm going to be giving an update on my project effort to modernize all of the legacy Gloomhaven classes into a Frosthaven card style. In my last video, my initial video, I had published an update saying that in TTS I had the first three classes were complete: Diviner, Craighart, and Mind Thief. Since then, I've actually gotten to 10 completed classes, so all of the legacy starters from Gloomhaven, including Spellweaver, Scoundrel, Tinkerer, and Brute, are now all complete. In addition to that, I've also completed 3 of the locked classes, so Circles, 2 Minis, and 3 Spears are also completed. I will have some spoilers for those classes towards the end of the video, but I'll give you a heads up before I get into that. All of these classes have now been consolidated into a single mod, and you can find a link to that mod in the description below. And they also have all the cards available with a bleed edge on my Google Drive, so that you can go and you can download and you can print them yourself at home. I'll say, as I've said before, these are not the final versions of cards. So once we have Frosthaven actually live and we see all of the full syntax from not just the starter classes that have been released, I'm guessing I am going to have to go back and make some changes to some of these cards, but for the most part, they should be pretty much good to go. And I did also get approval from Cephalofair to continue on with this project. And they said I can use that for a Tabletop Simulator and make them available for y'all to print. So with that, let's kind of jump in and take a look at what the updates have been so far. In the latest update, I've made some fixes to syntax and added unique class background art to the cards similar to the latest Frosthaven samples we've seen. Here you can see the revised version of some of the original classes I completed. So you can see the Diviner now has a rift background and uses the current curse icon. Craighart has a rocky background and has a bubble in the bottom text for the heal range. And Mind Thief has a sewer background, and the summon frame no longer has a box for additional abilities if the summon doesn't have any. Looking at Scoundrel, I used the mat to explain some of the core mechanics of the class. Using the new ally hex found on the Banner Spears mat, I created a similar set of possible orientations as a way to illustrate how many of the Scoundrel's attacks are improved when an ally is adjacent to the target. I also touched on isolating enemies from its own allies, and some useful strategy around initiative dancing. For the cards, I used a pile of coins for the background. Scoundrel doesn't have many complex abilities to highlight, but I think the cards look very clean in the new style. For Spellweaver, I used alternative official art by the same artist as the original, and I used an abstract fire and ice styled background. For class notes, I touched on element consumption, but mostly focused on reviving ether. Given the small hand size, this card is critical to how the class plays, so it was important to highlight it on the player mat. One of the best improvements to Frosthaven's style is how much cleaner element consumption is displayed, and Spellweaver is a perfect example of that. I also used this redesign as an opportunity to add a placeholder to Crackling Air. This way you can track whether you consumed air to improve the ability when you played it. Brute may have been the hardest mat to make because there's no clear mechanics that need to be explained. I used this opportunity to focus on highlighting some general themes. First, I wanted to call out that Brutes have some defense, but they aren't meant to be face-tanking enemies. The Brute has a lot of cards where attacks play off movement, or movement plays off attacks. This includes a large number of push and pull abilities and perks. Again, I used the alternative art for the portrait. On the cards, I used a blood splatter background, and like Scoundrel, Brute doesn't have many complex cards, so the main benefit here is just how much cleaner the cards look overall. For Tinkerer, I continued with my choice to use alternative art, and used the mat as an opportunity to highlight some of the recover mechanics and heavy selection of lost cards that should be leaned into given the large hand size. On the cards, I used a clockwork steampunk style background. It's worth noting here on Noxious Vials that the refresh icon from Gloomhaven has been retired, and instead we only see the recovery icon on items used in Frosthaven, so that's reflected here. While the cards themselves look good, my favorite part of my redesign here is the art I made for the Harmless Contraptions decoy, because, let's be real, there's nothing like a cardboard cutout with googly eyes to wheel around and fool your enemies. From this point forward, I'm going to be covering some locked classes, so it'll be 2 minis, 3 spears, and circles. This is a spoiler warning, so if you continue watching, you're going to find out information about these locked classes. I'm sure it comes as no surprise that the Beast Tyrant's character mat is now the home for many of the Bear Companions rules. This includes when and how to summon the bear, and how the Beast Tyrant's command abilities work. The traits for locked classes have not been shared yet, but one of the Frosthaven updates did say that this would be published in the Frosthaven rulebook. Until then, these traits are a best guess, and will be corrected later if they need to. To go along with the mat, I've also created an additional card in the style of ability cards to represent the bear summon. This card can be used much like a summon ability card, showing the bear's stats and explaining how damage to the bear can be negated by discarding. On the ability cards, I used a forest stream for the background, but I wanted to better distinguish command abilities from the Beast Tyrant's abilities. So for actions that the bear can take, I used a dark grayscale background of the bear, with the command banner in the top left corner. To me, this makes it easier for players to quickly look at their hand and separate the cards in their mind. Not surprisingly, the Quartermaster's mat focuses on all the many card and item recovery mechanics. As I mentioned before, the refresh icon is no more, so here we're just using the recover icon. One of the problems with the old refresh icon was that it looked so similar to the spent icon, so it wasn't super clear that you could refresh consumed items. This has been clarified on the mat. I also used the space to highlight the refresh an item attack modifier card you can gain from perks, and I've included an updated version of this card to again use the new iconography and the Frosthaven attack modifier card style. I used a weapon rack from an armory as the background art for the ability cards. Aside from the icon changes, the self-damage portions of some cards are now represented in mandatory boxes similar to Cragheart. The Summoner's character mat obviously focuses on the different rules around initiative order and their automated action rolls. Given these classes may be used in Frosthaven, I also included a reference to the new Frosthaven rule allowing summons to move towards the summoner when they cannot find an enemy focus. The background for these cards is a starry nebula, trying to capture the feel of the Aether. The biggest changes to the cards here are the use of the new Frosthaven Grant ability, which by definition means you control the action. By far the biggest challenge for this class was having to add art for each of the 12 summons. For almost all of these, and whenever possible, I used existing Gloomhaven or Frosthaven artwork and modified them. I used the Forest Imp to make the Healing Sprite, Stone Golem to make the Lava Golem, Earth Demon to make the Rock Colossus, Hound to make the Shadow Wolf, Ooze to make the Slime Spirit, Deep Terror to make the Thorn Shooter, and Dark Rider to make the Black Unicorn. From Frosthaven art, I used the Steel Automation to make the Iron Beast, and the Flaming Blade Spinner to make the Living Bomb. For now, I'm going to take a short pause on the Gloomhaven locked classes to work on the 4 Jaws of the Lion classes, starting with Hatchet. The favorite is a fun mechanic, but the card itself is a paragraph, and this just created too good of an opportunity to move a lot of this to the character mat. So what do you think of these redesigned cards and mats? And which of the remaining classes are you most looking forward to? Leave a comment and let me know. I wanted to give a huge thanks to my subscribers. I'm now well over 400, so happy to continue seeing the channel grow. I also had a recent video with enemy minis that I 3D printed and painted. I'm going to be holding off on doing any more of those because now that we have an announcement that official minis for Gloomhaven are going to be coming, I want to wait and see what the timeline of that will be, and most likely I'm going to be participating in that crowdfunding. Last thing, I am going to make a video pretty soon with me doing the solo scenario for 3 Spears, so if you're interested in checking that out, hit the sub button. If you enjoyed this video, consider sharing it with the people you play with, hitting the like button, and subbing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.